buckle in, get a snack. Today I am giving you my final reviews on 46 new products at Sephora. I've been testing these products for the past few weeks, in some cases months, multiple ways, multiple wear tests, multiple products, multiple applications, so that I can give you my final thoughts. Because one thing about my channel, what I won't do is mention a product once and you'll never hear it again. If I test it, it gets put in my speed reviews drawer and stays in there until I'm comfortable enough to give you my final review. And all of this, as you know, with it being the season that it is the new fall and holiday winter makeup launches that I've been saving up to do this big video for you guys in time for the Sephora sale, so that you can narrow down the best products for you if you're interested in picking anything up. So 46 products. We have a lot to get into. Let's start off with our complexion. I actually only have one primer to start us off. This is the new primer from Fenty Beauty. It's the Grip Trip Hydrating Plumping Primer. The packaging of this is just so cool. Not just the packaging, the product itself is so cool. I really like this primer. It is lightly hydrating. I don't notice it being overly sticky, and it's a nice shot of hydration before applying my makeup. That being said, it's not the most game-changing hydrating primer out there in the world. There's a lot of other hydrating primers that I would probably reach for over this. This one is just really light. So if my skincare is good for the day, if my skin feels nice and hydrated for the day, and I'm sitting down and I just need that extra little boost, I would reach for this because it is so lightweight and fresh, versus some other hydrating primers which are a bit more heavy duty if my skin is feeling dry. I'm not reaching for this if my skin is dry, but if my skin is in good condition and I want it to stay in good condition for the rest of the day, that's when I would reach for this. This makes my skin feel really nice. I think it's a nice primer. It's not going to be the most hydrating that you've ever experienced, but if you have combo skin, this would be perfect for you. So I like it. They also do have like a mattifying and blurring one. I haven't tried that just because it's not great for my skin type anyways. So this is the one I've been focusing on. I have 3 different foundations that I've been testing. All of these have been very thoroughly tested. For reference, I have dry skin, uneven texture, uneven skin tone. So you already know how I feel about this. This already made its way into my Sephora recommendations. I've worn this a ton because I can't put it down. It's the Natasha Denona High Glam Foundation. Get the shade that matches you. What matches me is mixing N2 and P3 to add just a little bit of warmth. This foundation sits so beautiful on the skin, and it wears all day on me. I notice it doesn't look cakey at the end of the day. It doesn't travel into fine lines. It's nice and lightweight, but gives medium coverage on my dry skin. It doesn't emphasize any dryness. This is everything I want in a foundation. It has quickly become a top tier favorite. Definitely in my top 5 favorite foundations, I would say. Everything that I loved about the High Glam Concealer is what this foundation has given me in a foundation form. So I think you'll love it. I don't think there's a skin type that this foundation isn't for. It is viral for a reason, and it is worth the hype. Trust and believe. The next foundation that I have is the reformulated Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Foundation. I wear the shade 4 Neutral. She's still thick. I will give it to her. It is an improved formula from the last one. It is thinner, but less is more with this foundation because it can easily look a little too heavy and cakey on the skin. It is the definition of a full coverage foundation, so be aware of that. It has a soft matte finish, and it can look like a lot if you put a lot on. There is a time and place for a foundation like this. I'm not reaching for this every day. I think it's a beautiful foundation to be mixed into other foundations when you want more coverage. And I will reach for this if I do specifically want a beat full coverage look, but for the everyday, it can be a little much, and there is a fine line between a good application and then it running cakey, so you have to be careful with this. I do like having it in my collection though, because I like to mix this with other products. So It is improved from the first formulation, but it still can get a little cakey, so I'm warning you. And then the last foundation, it's a skin tint that I have here, is the new Armani Beauty Skin Tint. So this is light as air on this skin. If you hate the feel of wearing makeup, I think you will really enjoy this. It literally is like water in application and does the perfect job just evening everything out. It gives very light coverage, but like I said, it just makes the skin look more evened and more fresh and just put together. This paired with the concealer to kind of compensate for the lack of coverage if you do have an uneven skin tone is perfect. Now this is one of those products where it doesn't look great on me right away because of its really thin nature. I do find that sometimes it can stick to some dry patches, but when I pair it with other products that I enjoy and as my skin warms up throughout the day, I do find that I really, really enjoy this product. So it's not a game-changing skin tint, but I've enjoyed it for just how it feels like absolutely nothing on my skin. Let's call this category the conceal and correct category. I have two different products. First is a tried and true, just regular concealer. This is the new Makeup Forever HD Skin Full Cover Concealer. This is newer in terms of what I'm testing on this table. It's one of the ones that I've tested the least. However, I want to say I've worn this about 5 times now, and I just want to give you an update that I don't love this. I also don't dislike it. I find it performs pretty inconsistently based on other bases that I use. When I wear it with a good foundation, I like the performance of this a lot more. If I'm wearing this with a foundation that looks a little dry on my skin, I find that this also will look dry on my under eyes. It really pairs well with the partner and listens to whatever that partner does, but this gives pretty full coverage, you guys. It is not quite full, but it's like almost on the line there, so you get a lot of coverage with this, but it is a bit thick and I do find it has a tendency to look cakey. I've enjoyed my wear with this when I wear and layer the least amount, so less is more when it comes to this product. That being said, I just think there are better concealers out there. This is not a bad concealer, but I'm not going to put you into the direction of this concealer because there are concealers that behave much better all of the time. So for reference, I use the shade 1N14. It's an okay product. I'll continue to use it, but I'm not recommending it to anybody. This I'm putting as the correct. However, this, I don't even know how you would describe this. It's the Mary Phillips Underpainting Face Palette. So you got a little bit of contour, bronzer, highlight, and color corrector. One thing I will say, the color corrector here does not agree with the Makeup Forever concealer. This is the second time. It's looked really patchy on my under eyes, and I think it's because of this. But this palette overall, I do love the way that it applies and blends out on bare skin, which is the intention of it. But I am not much of an underpainter. It's just not part of my routine. I feel like it's an extra step. When I have used it as directed, it works out beautifully on the skin, but I've actually more so been using it on top of my base. So today I use the contour shade. I love this contour shade for my nose. I love that I can go up and brighten my foundation. I can add bronziness. I can correct, though this corrector acts a little weird on the under eyes, so I don't love it for that. But all in all, I think it's a very versatile cream formulation here. I think she did a good job with this. So if you are a fan of underpainting, I think you will enjoy it. And this is very, very pricey, but you do have the ability to do a lot with this. So I like this. I think it's very, very nice quality. Next up, I have 4 setting powders. We'll start off with the loose ones. The first one that I have is from Fenty Beauty. I feel like this was a really quiet launch from them. It's the Set It Down Super Fine Blurring Setting Powder. This is so much better than the other loose setting powder that they had before. This is very, very, very fine, and sometimes I do find that with such fine setting powders, it can leave a little bit of a film behind. And this one, unfortunately, does leave a little bit of a film, but this is one of the most fine powders I've ever used. It is very, very blurring, almost to the point where I feel like it's too lightweight, where I need something with a little bit more heft. So it's almost too slippery, I guess is the way I would describe it. But it is much better than the original one, and it does blur. But for my preferences, it's a little too fine and slippery. I prefer something with a little bit more grip. Which brings us to the next one, the best loose setting powder ever that has every quality that I could want. It's the Huda Beauty Easy Bake setting powder. Now, why this is in this video, it's because it's the new duo. So it has the shade Cherry Blossom Cake and Peach Pie. A little unnecessary. It is limited edition. I think it was just a fun thing that she did because it went viral. It's a nice shade. I can't say I noticed too much of a difference from one shade to the other, but it's a formula that I love, so I've been reaching for it. And if you like the concept, you like the idea, I do think it's fun. Pick it up while it is available, but I'm just as happy with a single color as well. It's still that great formula. I feel like this one has a little bit of a stronger fragrance than they've been doing lately, like kind of like the OG fragrance, which I don't mind a fragrance, but I know some of you do, so I wanted to mention that. And then I have two pressed powders. The first one, another quiet launch from Fenty Beauty. We have the Bright Fix Instant Brightening and Blurring Powder. The shade that I've mostly been using is Rose Quartz. This is okay. It does add a little bit of extra color to the skin, so it's nice to brighten with. However, I wouldn't set with this because I do think it's a little bit drying on my dry skin type. I think oily skin would appreciate this formula more. I like it, again, just to add a little extra bit of brightening and color to the skin, but it doesn't do too much in the way of blurring. And because it's a little bit drying on my skin, I don't love it. There are just other powders that I would go for, but it's not a bad powder at all. And like I said, I think oily skin, you will appreciate this a little bit more than I do. And then finally, we have the new One Size Boucle Silk Cellulose Airbrush Powder. Really gorgeous, bridging on Hourglass, I have to say. This gives a little bit more coverage than the Hourglass. You definitely get more color from this, but this is a beautiful, lightweight baked powder that's not flat, that you can put all over the skin. This is more my speed when it comes to a pressed powder. Now, of course, the Fenty is matte. I mean, there is a time and a place for matte, but dry skin, I like a little bit of a glow. I like that this isn't completely flat. This is a gorgeous air light powder that's not flat, and I think it does just make the skin look refreshed and smooth. So this is definitely a hit. I definitely recommend this and picking it up if you are interested for the savings event. Did this not make my recommendations? If it didn't, that was a mistake, because this is a beautiful, beautiful powder. Moving on to bronzers, I have three. They all happen to be powder. The first one is from Armani. This is the Luminous Silk Bronzer. I have mine in the shade 90. I love this bronzer. Now, one thing I want to point out, this is made in China, which I think is very interesting. Luxury brands don't source from China very often. But that aside, it is a beautiful bronzer. I really, really love this. There are some golden glitters that you'll see even in my swatch. I saw the gold glitters, but I don't notice any of the gold glitters on my face. I think this deposits the perfect amount of pigment. I love that it is ginormous. It blends onto the skin beautifully, and this shade in particular gives a beautiful bronze. Like, I have no complaints about this bronzer. I have been loving it. I think it applies so easily without being splotchy or patchy on the face as well. This is a good luxury bronzer. I've enjoyed it a lot. The other luxury bronzer that I have is from Givenchy, and I have a problem with this color. So this is the Prism Leap Bronzing Powder, and it's that classic Givenchy 4 split pan color, but I find that this makes me look dirty. This little quadrant right here. Now this shade overall, 001, is going to be perfect for my very fair, cool toned girls, because this is very, very light. It is not the best shade on my complexion. It looks a little bit gray, but it's really light and soft to apply. It's beautiful in that way, but I just don't love this color on myself, which is a personal problem. That's why I'm calling out fair, light, cool toned skin. Look into this bronzer. I think you will love it. It's just not for me. I'm reaching for the Armani Beauty more. And then this one was a huge recommendation for me. It has been such a fun discovery. I was like floored when I tried it out because how unique can a powder bronzer be? But the new Hung Van Gogh Soft Blurring Bronzer in the shade Straightforward, that's just a shade that I use. This really is a soft blurring bronzer. I got a little scared when I saw the color, but I'm telling you, it applies in such a light veil over the skin. You don't need to be scared, and it just smooths and blurs the skin. It is a gorgeous airbrush appearance. It is flat because it has more of a matte finish, but it's not a drying matte texture. Nothing but good notes to say. Like I said, a powder bronzer, you can only go so many ways with describing it, but this one is just special. It just has that special quality that I think makes it worth picking up in a time where you probably already have a lot of other powder bronzers. This one is special. Maybe the rest, you know, I love the Armani and the Givenchy is cool too, but those ones I don't think are special compared to what's already available, even though they're good still. This one I think is actually quite special. Okay, next up we are moving on to blushes. I have 4 different items that I'm talking about. We'll start off with the liquid item, which are the new Too Faced Cloud Crush Wit Lip and Cheek colors, which I haven't heard anybody talk about, but these are kind of K-beauty inspired. They're that wit consistency. They're completely matte on the skin. They feel like a mousse, and they're quite pretty, and they do blur the cheeks. Peach Blur, Super Candy Clouds, Headliner, Milk and Cookies, Bed of Roses, Red Velvet, Love Potion. They're quite similar, I would say. Where is it? This isn't being sold at Sephora. I keep thinking it is. I don't know why it didn't. The Dior Forever Blush Soft Filters, these are very similar to that. The Dior's a little bit more blurring, but these are really, really good. And they're probably like half the price of the Dior, and the shades are really pretty. I don't particularly love these on the lips, which they do advertise they can be put on the lips. But if you like a matte, moussey K-beauty blush that's gonna blur, kind of just melts into the skin really nicely, especially for winter. If you're following the matte skin trend, I think you would really like these. These are kind of underrated. They're a nice product. It's just that glowy cheeks, cream cheek products are so popular right now. It's not really as much about the matte that these aren't getting attention, but for what they are, they're very nice, and they're a nice change from the same old that we've been getting. I actually have a lot of powder blushes, which is interesting, but along with Hung Bengo's bronzer, he did also launch a blush. This is the very beautiful Velvet Blush. I have mine in the shade Second Language. I would say this didn't knock my socks off quite as much as the bronzer, but this is still a beautiful blush. Blush, again, is one of those categories where it's like, how different can we get here? I mean, there's nothing I can complain about. It's a nice, easy to use, easy to blend, buildable powder blush formula. It's beautiful when setting a cream blush, but is also beautiful on its own on bare skin. It easily deposits enough pigment. It's a nice formula if you see a color that you enjoy. Now, a single blush that I've really been enjoying that I do think stands out a bit are the Ilia Soft Focus Blurring Blush. These are a gorgeous formula. Kind of does remind me a little bit of Hourglass. I even went ahead and purchased another shade for the Sephora Savings event, so that should tell you how happy I am with this. So I have this in the shade Glimpse. It has a very nice subtle sheen to it, and it's not a sheen that's going to emphasize texture, so it doesn't look flat on the face, and with its really silky nature, it applies very easily to the cheeks. You can build it up, and it just looks soft and angelic on the cheeks. I think this is a stunning formula that Ilia came out with, and as soon as the Sephora sale started, I knew I had to get another color. This Glimpse shade is going to be gorgeous on fair skin, but it's also very pretty and subtle on my skin tone as well if you're more in the light kind of family, but they have a lot of other beautiful colors. I really love this blush. This one is one that stands out. And I'm putting this last one in the blush category. It's a blush and bronzer duo, but whatever. It's not super new, but it was new to me. I've been playing with the Westman Atelier Baby Cheeks Powder Blush Duo. I have the shade Suede and Sable, and I used the blush on this cheek. It's just a very pretty mauve-y blush. And then we also have a nice bronzer. Now this is kind of falling in the category of it's a good powder product. It applies beautifully, blends beautifully, have no notes, but it is just a powder product. So maybe it doesn't stand out. This is a purchase where if you really like the colors, you really like Westman Atelier, this is very nice. No complaints about it, but Westman Atelier is expensive. But Westman Atelier is a pretty good brand for this Sephora sale because they are so expensive, so you save a little bit more money. And I do think that this duo is beautiful, but you'll see later in this video, there's so many beautiful cheek palettes out right now that it's like, does that one stand out? Probably not, but it's gorgeous. And then let's talk about highlights. I have 2 different formulas for you. Highlights have been kind of out. I haven't reviewed a lot of highlighters, but Patrick Ta recently reformulated his Major Glow Cream and Powder Light Reflecting Translucent Highlighter Duos. So I have 3 shades, the lightest shade being My Love. Then we have Baby, which is the pinky shade, and then Daddy, which is a little bronzy, more so for medium complexions, though it doesn't really matter because these have no pigment to them, pretty much. These are an improvement in the original formulation, which is really goopy and it looked really scaly on my skin, but I still don't like these, honestly. The powder leaves something to be desired. It barely shows up on the skin. The cream is like a Vaseline that stays wet on the cheek. And then the 2 of them paired together have a tendency to look a little chunky on my face. I just don't like these. I can tell there was an improvement, but it's not my style of highlighter. And you know, I was mentioning this in yesterday's video. 2016 happened. We already got the best of the best highlight formulas. Just go for those. I know they were trying to do something new and different, but it's too different. It's too runway. You know, runway makeup, you don't need longevity. It doesn't really matter how it wears. So if I'm sending a model down the runway, I'll use this Vaseline on the face that will give a gorgeous glow as you're walking down with the lights hitting. However, my hair is gonna stick to it. If I layer the powder, it's gonna look chunky. I just don't recommend it. Another reformulation with the highlighters here, Dior recently reformulated, unfortunately, their Backstage Glow Maximizer palettes. Unfortunate because this is my favorite formula. And it's not bad, but it's not as good as the original. It's different. It's a little bit different. You can watch my full video if you want to see exactly what the differences are, but it is still a really, really beautiful formula. So even though it is sad that it's not as good, it's still a very recommended highlighter from me. I just recommend, though, sticking with Universal Glow. I think this is the best highlighter and it works on so many different skin tones. I also swatched for you guys. I have Rose Gold Glow, which is a new shade. It is a re-promote, but it is new to the permanent range. And then this is brand new, the Pearly Peach Glow. And some of them have different finishes, like the Pearly Peach Glow is gonna have a glitter finish in here, but this one is great for medium complexions. Really gorgeous highlights. Even though it's not as good as the original, these are still quite stunning, quite glowy, and still one of the best highlighters on the market. So I do recommend this if you're interested. There are multiple shades of highlighters within this one little palette. I don't, however, recommend the Opal Glow one that just launched for the holidays. That one is not as good. I made the mistake of purchasing that for the sale and I regret it. The formula, it doesn't hit quite like these 3. I don't know why they did that. Okay, I have 3 different face palettes, multi-purpose face palettes for this next category. We'll talk about these Charlotte Tilbury ones first. You will notice in these sets of speed reviews, not mentioning eyeshadow palettes. That is going to be the video after the speed review. So I'm just going to do a full separate video because we actually got a lot of eyeshadow palettes. But anyways, these do have eyeshadows in them. That's why I'm mentioning that. But these are the new Hollywood Instant Look in a Palettes that Charlotte Tilbury launched this year. It had been years since she launched these, so I was super excited. And this Pretty Glowing Beauty actually sold out, which I'm excited about because hopefully that means she'll continue coming out with more because these are so extremely convenient. Every year that these have launched, I always use these for travel. I always reach for them a lot. So this year, we have Pretty Glowing Beauty, which is a little bit lighter, and then we have Dreamy Bronze Beauty. Now, if you're around my skin tone, both can work for me. I think the bronzer, of course, in the lighter palette is a little bit more flattering for me, but these are so stunning. That said, these are not as good as Look in a Palettes in previous years. The ones from previous years ago were better in my opinion, especially with the eyeshadows. I'm not in love with the eyeshadows, but even though these aren't special, we just haven't gotten these palettes in so long, and the concept of them is just so good and useful that I've reached for these a lot. These were a recommendation because I'm getting a hot flash, Jose. One of my new pregnancy symptoms is at least once a day I get a random hot flash. Oh my God. Like, my second trimester has been lovely, but these hot flashes, oh my God. Anyways, the proof is in the pudding. I've been wearing these a lot, so even though I can say from a review perspective, these aren't as good as previous years, it doesn't matter. I'm still using them. I'm getting my money's worth. And what I love about these is they have the Airbrush Flawless Setting Powder, which I think has completely changed these palettes and the versatility in them. It makes it a true complete face palette. You get 3 eyeshadows, a bronzer, a blush, and a highlight color, but you can do whatever you want with these. You can put the bronzer in the crease, you can put this all over the eye. That is what is so great about these, is the versatility, which actually makes you able to get more different looks as well. Same thing here, you have a beautiful finishing powder. The blushes here are a little bit deeper, particularly this one, so it's not a highlight on me, but this is pretty as a blush topper, or I used it for an eye look as well. Use this for liner, so you can do a lot of different things with these. So if the colors appeal to you, highly recommend these. These are great. I can't put them down. They're just so functional. Now, NARS does have a lot more to offer in the way of their holiday collection, but most of that's going to be available on the NARS website. What came to Sephora from their holiday collection is the new Realm Ethereal Aura Blush Palette, which happens to be probably the best item in the holiday collection. I wasn't expecting that. I used to buy these blush/holiday palettes from NARS every single year, and then they became more and more repetitive and disappointing. This is one of my favorites in a while. I think it's a gorgeous palette, and I think it's better than the other one that's available on the NARS website. You get these 3 really beautiful creamy shimmer. You can either use them as blushes, blush toppers, or highlighters depending on your skin tone, and then 3 flat/satin blushes on the bottom. I know Dolce Vita is a shade that exists, but this I believe is like 50-50. Half of these are new, or 4 of them are new, and then 2 of them are existing shades in the permanent line. I don't even care. I think this is a gorgeous palette. Particularly if you have medium or deep complexion, you're going to love this, but this works on my skin tone as well. And I just love how creamy this top row is and how these 2 colors vertically can be paired together. It's very different than the other palette that they have in this collection, how they did it and laid it out and what they have in here. But I think that this one is the standout. And if the colors appeal to you, I do recommend it. And let's not forget the gorgeous packaging. Can I go a video without talking about these? No, but I haven't put these in a speed reviews yet. You know I love them. These are the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Edit Palettes. Not going to talk too much about these. You know, these are my favorite powder formulations. They are a formula that cannot be duped, unfortunately, because they are very, very pricey. But these are a treat yourself kind of palette that I do recommend to purchase one if you are interested. I'm never going to tell you to spend this kind of money for no reason, but if you're interested, it is a beautiful palette and I don't think you'll regret it. It has that hourglass filter that no other brands can recreate on this skin, and their finishing powders give the most beautiful glowy blur to the skin. You have bronzers, highlights, blushes. So for this year, the Deer I recommend for light skin tones, medium skin tones. You can check into the Swan palette. I think this one is my favorite this year, and then deeper complexions, medium to deep, I would say. We have the Fox palette this year, and Sephora also has the Horse palette. Phenomenal. The best of the best. My favorite holiday launch. #1 most recommended to pick up during the sale or on the Hourglass website. Not sure if the code is still going on, but HGNow20 gave you 20% off of those, which is clutch. Those are amazing. The best product for face, for powder, ever. But I've said that a billion times before, so let's keep moving. We're going to finish off with the last 4 setting sprays. Now, these are not new. They came out this summer. So these have been in my speed reviews for a while. Don't know how that happened. I've had my final thoughts on these for a while, but I thought I'd throw them in here anyways. We have the new, not new anymore, but we have the reformulation of the Urban Decay setting sprays. Honestly, the original all-nighter, I don't really notice too much of a difference comparing this to the old partnership with Scandinavia, but a lot of people have said they have noticed a difference. I just have dry skin, so I don't struggle as much with longevity, where you might be able to tell more if you have more oily skin. I haven't noticed a difference. Seems the same to me. But it's supposed to not be as good. There is a change in formula. What I've been using more is the All-Nighter Glow Finish Setting Spray because I normally need a shot of hydration this time of year. And this is fine. It doesn't give as much hydration or glow as a lot of other setting sprays. This is kind of a mid-setting spray, if you ask me. I really wouldn't recommend it. I've just been using it because it's been in front of me. But what seems to be the new trend right now are blurring / mattifying setting sprays. The first one being my favorite one, the Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin Liquid Blurring Balm Mattifying Setting Spray. Listen to me. If you have dry skin and you don't like powder, you have to try this. This is such a unique product. This is almost like powder in a setting spray, but not like one that's gonna mess up your makeup or make you look powdery. It almost just delivers some particles of powder to like soak up the excess oil on the skin without drying you out. So if you like to do your makeup and not set or use as minimal powders as possible, this is going to do that for you without having to use actual powder. It is incredible on my dry skin. Now, if you're more on the oily side and want something a little bit more heavy duty, then I would point you instead to the new Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Setting Spray Matte Blur, Mattify Smooth, and Blend and Set Setting Spray. Charlotte Tilbury has other setting sprays that I prefer for myself as someone who has dry skin, but this is a very heavy duty, very mattifying setting spray. So my oiliest of oily girls, I think you will really, really enjoy this one. But for me, it sucks a little too much of the life out of me. It gets rid of all the hydration I worked so hard for with my skincare, my drinking, my primers. This takes that all away from me. It makes me look thirsty. So if you have dry skin, I don't really recommend this for you. You definitely want to try out the Danessa Myricks. This is incredibly unique. They do sell a mini version at Sephora if you don't want to take the plunge on a full size. It's like setting powder in a bottle. And if you are super oily and need to be mattified, I think you will enjoy this one. And that's going to close this out for complexion. Those were 26 products. Fear not, this is a 46 product speed review. So make sure you're subscribed to my channel because tomorrow we're going to be speed reviewing the new eyes and lip products that Sephora has to offer. So I will be back with that. This saves you some time, gives you a break, gives my editor a break, gives me a break because I gotta catch my breath. I am breathless right now, but the complexion stuff is always fun. Always have a good time with that. So those are my final thoughts on these new complexion products from Sephora that I have been thoroughly testing for you guys, putting a little bow up on it. Those are my final thoughts, and I hope you found it helpful. I will have all of the colors that I used and everything that I talked about linked down below for you, as well as tagged in YouTube shopping. If you were a little overwhelmed with what to pick up for the Sephora sale, hopefully this helped narrow down some things for you or cut some things off your list, of course. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll see you tomorrow for part 2, where we will finish off the rest of these reviews because we still have a lot of opinions, a lot of thoughts, and a lot of new products that I need to give you the tea about. So see you in the next one, guys. Have a good one.
It's delicious.